The torch of education. What is it, and why are there so much symbols with schools? Of course, the most obvious source of the torch is in the hands of the statue of Libertas, what many might call the Statue of Liberty in New York. And it's no surprise that the New York University also has a torch. But this torch symbol can be found in different places, including Rouen University. And of course their torch is within a medical symbol, also with its own implications. Now this university couldn't get more despicable when they used the death of Richard Mitchell, who was a avid critic of the education system, or the educationist system as he called it, and they used his death as an attempt to raise money, of course. And then we can also find these torches at the University of Florida, and also at the Defense Language Institute, which more has a brazier, or the top of the torch could be considered. Now this education system is a business, but their business is not necessarily all about money, because they have ulterior motives besides simply generating funds for their campaigns. But this torch symbol aligns with the Jesuit mission of go set the world on fire, as said by Ignatius Loyola. Now, in History in English Words by Owen Barfield and A Ford by W.H. Auden, we get a very poetic explanation of what these so-called schools do. And he said, quote, "It will always be possible to use language as a demagogue uses it, as black magic, which neither, like a communication code, supplies people with information they need to know, nor, like speech, asks for a personal and therefore unpredictable response, but seeks to extort from others mindless tautological echoes of itself." Now, tautological is a mathematical term referring to perfect replication. So without flaw, which means he's saying exactly what these schools do, which is they self-replicate in perfect echoes. Meaning there's no, well, at least they would prefer for there not to be any room for error in their replications. We will examine some of the practical applications to this educationist torch that they use to light the pyre of knowledge and essentially do what they like to refer to as book burning. And in the bylaws of the Board of Regents, they stipulate certain responsibilities, which of course they don't actually follow, unless of course they're running off of a definition that's different from the customary traditional definition, which they do like to change the definition of words, and therefore words don't actually mean anything, because you could have 10 people in the same room and each one of them has a different definition in their mind of a word and understand something different, which is one of the reasons why lawyers and legalists are constantly defining their terms. And in this Board of Regents bylaws, they say they are canons of interpretation. And the canon in literary terms is simply a repeated verse that's taken from one source and, well, repeated. Isn't it entertaining, the titles that they bestow on themselves, as in the Board of Regents, like some sort of royalty, or kings, as in a king regent or a prince regent, generally a title of nobility. And they stipulate, as part of a contractual agreement or promise, meaning that when you make a contract with them, like a student or otherwise, they promise to uphold these bylaws, which they don't, of course, unless, of course, they're working off a different definition. But in the rights and responsibilities of professional staff, which is chapter 4, Part 1, it says membership in the academic community. Yeah, they're not really members in the academic sense, more in the propagandistic community. Imposes certain obligations. These obligations include the following duties of academic responsibility. A, to respect 1, the dignity of others. And in the next portion of this part, we will examine how they don't do that. And then 2, the right of others to express differing opinions. They also don't uphold that. The right of others to be free from fear, from violence, and from personal abuse. They don't do that, so in any sense of the term. And then the right of the university community to be free from actions that impedes its normal functioning. That sounds like they're attempting to shift liability in that one paragraph where they're stating they're going to do all this stuff. But they're also stating that they're going to not follow up on anything that might impede its normal function. And then to teach, or to enroll, teach, and evaluate the work of students without regard to considerations such as age, sex, race, color, national origin, or religious or political beliefs. Like that last one, political beliefs. To establish and maintain a classroom or laboratory atmosphere that encourages free inquiry and the free expression of ideas by students. And we'll just stop there because they don't obviously enforce any of these. And in the next part, I will explain just how they are breaking these particular statutes that they have in their bylaws as contractual promise. However, in another part of the Board of Regents bylaws, it's very interesting because in Chapter 6.8, they basically state that if somebody attempts to hold a member of their community, as they say, responsible for certain actions, and they find after an investigation, and we all know how thorough their investigations are, or at least we'll find out how thorough their investigations are further in the video, they will not back up that member of their community. You see, in Chapter 6.8 of the Board of Regents bylaws, there's a particular part that is very important. It states, quote, legal defense, indemnification of members of the board, university officers, employees, and students in training, insurance, and risk management. A. If a civil action is brought against any member of the board or any university officer, employee, or student in training, such individual may file a written request with the General Counsel for the university asserting that such civil action is based in fact upon an alleged act or omission occurring in the course and scope of his or her duties, employment, or training. Now here's the part. General Counsel for the university shall thereupon arrange for the legal defense of the requesting individual unless, after investigation, it is found that the claim or demand does not arise out of an alleged act or omission occurring in the course and scope of duties, employment, or training of the requesting individual, or that the act or omission complained of amounted to a malfeasance in office or willful and wanton neglect of duty, in which case General Counsel for the university shall give the requesting individual written notice that the defense of the claim has been rejected by the university. Now, looking at a report that I provided to multiple entities within this institution, said, greetings. Among my experiences at different institutions, my time at the University of Nebraska ranks among the best. My name is Stephen Coleman Roush, and the letter concerns troubling behavior that I witnessed at the University of Nebraska-Kearney. Throughout my career, I have witnessed various examples of blatant and unimaginable incompetence. However, there are few examples that compare to the ones listed in this letter. First, a geography professor argues the benefits of generalizations. If this was not enough of an example, an economics professor demonstrates an impressive lack of basic grammatical understanding in English. when it is stated that implied corruption in system not applicable to answering question. However, as far as the geography professor is concerned, stated in an email that he sent to me, the ability to generalize is an important part of knowledge and learning. People understand things through generalization. Next, despite following the posted guide, an art teacher awards a bad grade for the strangest of reasons. In the military, it is commonly understood, I said understand, that to generalize is to assume. It demonstrates an astounding lack of proficiency and professionalism that any professor would argue for the benefit of such. Pupils of this teacher are being set up for failure, since assumptions, or generalizations, lead to mistakes which can cost money in the corporate world and be fatal in the military one. As far as the economics teacher is concerned, she is clearly acting as an ombudsman for the quote-within-quote system, which in this case is likely the modern economic one. Her comment and other evidence demonstrate that she is adopting the personal responsibility of censoring information that she dislikes, a possible direct violation of the right to free expression, and other applicable laws and regulations. Finally, an art teacher, issued a bad grade for work that she, quote, seems to be completed with a tablet. It's a quote within quote. Of course, the work in question was not completed with a tablet, but seeming to be completed by one is enough for repercussions. Also, it was stated that the error of seeming to be completed with a tablet could be rectified and the project resubmitted. Of course, such an error would be impossible to rectify, since something seeming to be completed by a tablet is purely subjective observation in this instance. My background is mainly in the U.S. Marine Corps, where I honorably served 7 years and was awarded with a Good Conduct Medal, which speaks to my personal and professional reputation as an honest and responsible human entity. While attending this university under government benefits, I have a fiduciary responsibility to report alleged instances of wrongdoing to the appropriate authorities, which might include instances of misconduct, fraud, and other behavior that can prove damaging. I offer these examples for a specific idea of the problem and to aid with analysis of the situation. However, out of the many university-based experiences that I have enjoyed, the University of Nebraska-Kearney has proved among the best. As a graduate of the Defense Language Institute, I experienced a superior level of schooling, and few institutions can truly compare. Improvements must be made through deliberated questions, objectively analyzed situations, and properly understood action. Nothing less will do. And then, of course, I signed it and attached evidence. However, in other reports that I provided to, say, the Board of Regents, I did include other instances of evidence that were not originally included. They were later instances. Now, from that particular art teacher, she stated, quote, I have noticed that your work seems to be completed with a tablet. For the early assignments, it was not as important, but from now on, I need you to use the required materials, sketches, and things like that. I am fine with a tablet, but when the assignment lists materials, those are what you need to have and use. You can resubmit with the appropriate materials for a better grade. Now, this seems like the work of a materials teacher, not so much one about art, though. Now, to this teacher's credit, she did attempt to walk back her comment, but she did so in one of the most weaselly ways. She said, quote, Hi, Stephen. I am glad you have emailed. I'm sorry for the delay. I overlooked your email on Monday. I do apologize for not emailing earlier in the semester. To clarify, I thought about this when I graded another one of your assignments yesterday, and I noticed the image seemed different from your previous submissions. I was planning to send an email asking about it when I realized you had already sent one. When I originally graded this assignment, I did not see the second image. I attached a screenshot of your two submissions side by side. The one you have scanned in does look similar to a tablet drawing. The image you submitted from a camera is much easier to see, and I can tell you have used the appropriate materials. Now, that part of the paragraph is what you would call an excuse. Definitely stated out in a lot of words. and sentences that don't really mean anything and are unnecessary. But this part is what's the important part of this paragraph. In her apology that wasn't an apology, she attempts to lift liability to students when she states, "I have had so many students try to cut corners, try to avoid buying supplies, etc." That's nice. That definitely does not seem like somebody with contempt for students. Exactly what you want from a teacher, right? And in the rest, it said, "It was not fair for me to assume that you were using a tablet." Well, it's obvious. "Please continue to submit your work from a camera picture as it is easier to see your ability to complete the assignments. I agree that online art is not always the easiest or best way to assess artwork, but I do enjoy having the opportunity to work with so many people from so many places. As always, if you have questions or concerns, please email. I will go back and adjust your grade accordingly." Now that is a surprise as far as the way teachers conduct themselves, because they don't usually make apologies that aren't really apologies. They usually don't do anything. Now, from the generalization expert, he stated, "Stephen, you were graded well on the assignment because you completed it correctly as I asked in the instructions. You chose 3 countries that are clear representatives of the 3 development levels, and for each country, you provided 3 items to support your choices. You also answered the 2 questions about development and globalization more broadly, and your answers explained your reasoning. This is the same standard that I use to grade everyone else's submissions. Over half of the students who turned in the assignments were graded a 10. Well, that's nice. Over half? Oh, wow. How generous. There's always a but, though. And in the second paragraph, he stated, "I included the comment to your submission because much of your essay seemed to be an argument for why we cannot trust or rely on the PRB data sheet." PRB, by the way, stands for public, I don't know, whatever, some UN outfit. "And I think you are mistaken. The PRB data sheet is one of the best, easy to access sources for world demographic data. It is a widely used resource for learning simple demographics in geography and other social science departments." It's real science. "And this is what I use it for. Demographic data supports our understanding of places and people of the world and allows us to compare countries one to another. As with all social science datasets, it is influenced by bias, reporting errors, under and over count, etc., which you have correctly pointed out, but, nonetheless, it is still useful and highly regarded." Well, that's worrying. In the last paragraph, he states, "Lastly, I see this assignment as an appropriate use of the datasheet. I also disagree with your statement that generalizations are considered to be unethical and dishonest. The ability to generalize is an important part of knowledge and learning. People understand things through generalizations. People should not be completely driven by generalizations or make their decisions or opinions completely on the basis of generalization. There is the importance of nuance too. But there is nothing wrong with asking students for a generalized understanding as I have in the assignment." Best doctor. He's a doctor. Definitely wouldn't want him operating on anyone. That's for sure. Now, when it comes to Mrs. Protector of the System and Grand Guardian of Keynesian economics, as she teaches. Well, teaches using that term loosely. She stated in a comment, "Post is a single paragraph, but is off topic for much of the discussion. Focus should be on business cycle and how changes in real GDP and employment rates can be used to identify where in the business cycle the economy is operating." As written, the post does not fully address the question posed in the assignment or demonstrate understanding of the concepts. Definition of business cycle omitted. Recognition that business cycle has 4 phases is implied, but the linkage between GDP and employment in each of the phases is omitted and/or extremely limited. Recognition of relationship between GDP and unemployment omitted. Language/tone could be improved using terms, quote, within quote, benevolent governmental overlords, not relevant. Rant against oil companies and implied corruption in system, not applicable to answering question. Discussion of inflation is off topic. Post elicits comments from peers. Responded to peers' post. Well,
I don't know about you, but that comment to me seems a lot like it was made by a robot, or maybe artificial intelligence, which isn't very intelligent. Now, in a different circumstance, but one that was listed in later reports, a so-called professor of public speaking, although he certainly does not teach anything regarding public speaking, he stated, "Hi, Stephen. First of all, I do not say you cannot memorize your speech. I only said that it wasn't required. Please do not assume when I make a statement. Secondly, I specifically talk about what I meant in your speech during my lectures. There is no room for interpretation. While you are welcome to disagree with what a thesis is outside of the classroom, my rules for presenting a speech are clearly defined in my lectures, and I agreed accordingly. In my class, I ask for a certain way for things to be done, and that is the way I expect them to be done. Because you learn to do things differently in another situation does not apply here. I'm sorry if you disagree." Well, that sounds like somebody who thinks themselves a regent. Yes, Mr. Royal Prince there likes things to be done a certain way. How nice. Now, he also commented on a more recent submission. He stated, "Your thesis statement was inadequate. It needs to state what the main points of your speech will be, not just the main point of your speech." I believe what he's talking about is a thesis paragraph. He also stated, "Your closer needs to be much more than, quote, I hope you enjoyed this speech." That's called misconstruing. And he also stated, "You did not submit an outline." That's true. And he did say that my bibliography was not an APA. Well, I don't really care. Now, the Dean of Technology and Business demonstrates a classic example of shifting liability, or at least attempting to. He responded to my report, mind you, by saying, "I am in receipt of your report." Well, thank you. He did recognize that it's a report. He said, "I will look into the matter and get back to you if that is appropriate." Of course it won't be, but, you know. "Two of the three faculty member, that's a typo, about which you have concerns are not in my college, so I will need to share this with my colleague, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and there's your first shifting of responsibility." The second one is in the second paragraph when he states, which is more like 3 sentences, "I would always encourage you to have conversations with a faculty if and when you have concerns, either about your grades or even the content of their feedback," which of course I did. "All too often we misinterpret what others are trying to communicate when we focus only on written content. That is an attempt to shift the reliability back to me. The goal, of course, is to learn." Ha ha ha, that's a very vague statement. "I seek to do that every day, and I'm sure my faculty does as well." Yeah, in what context, I wonder. Learn how to better burn knowledge, I assume. He also stated, in another attempt to shift liability, that after getting a decent night's sleep, I'm going to suggest you schedule a time to sit down and talk face-to-face with these instructors. Emails are so often taken out of context in both directions. What one person feels as an innocent word or phrase can be construed by someone else to mean something totally different. I see it happen frequently, and I'm sure you've seen it before as well. In nearly 30 years of teaching. I have never had a situation with a student that we couldn't work through. Yeah, sure. You can also certainly schedule a time to discuss your concerns with their department chairs first, and deans. I think one of the faculty members with which you have concern is in my college, but the others are not. More shameless shifting of liability. Very nice. Very professional. Now, in the email to the regent, I said, quote, "Hello, my name is Stephen Coleman Roush, and I am reaching out to address concerns of possible misconduct. At the University of Nebraska-Kearney, I have attempted in many ways to reasonably deal with these problems myself, but the listed examples demonstrate a system-wide lack of perceived professionalism and respect for students at this institution, which could constitute a constitute violations of Chapter 4, Part A, Section 1, which states, A, to respect the dignity of others. Upon reaching out to the Dean of Business and Technology, under which my degree program is positioned, I at first believed that my issues would be addressed. However, I was later met with attempts to shift liability away from the faculty and onto students. After all, should a higher standard of conduct be expected from faculty versus the students that are expected to learn from them? Yet, it appears that an argument for the reverse is being presented. These and other examples might constitute breaches of other sections of the university bylaws and other applicable statutes, codes, and regulations. I will continue to do my best in implementing my fiduciary duty, and it is my sincerest hope that these issues might be resolved. Attaches the letter and supporting evidence. Please get back to me when convenient. Then, of course, I signed it in my own way. And here's their response, which first, mind you, came from the Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Don't you love these titles they give themselves? They're so official. She stated, I am in receipt of your complaint to Regent O'Connor. I have determined that there are no actionable issues to address at this time. Thank you. What a surprise. Now, I responded by first highlighting the section of the indemnification clause in the Regent's bylaws stating that if said person was in wanton neglect of duty or malfeasance, that they would not be protected by the institution as stipulated by the institution in their bylaws. But I also did state, after that particular notice of warning about this person's own alleged superiors, I stated, the University of Nebraska receives money from the federal government, which establishes a certain fiduciary responsibility. I have a fiduciary responsibility to report perceived misconduct, and the binding contract of the Regent bylaws clearly stipulates certain responsibilities to the faculty of this institution. Additionally, an employee of the University of Nebraska-Kearney, a federally funded institution, will have a contractual fiduciary responsibility to the U.S. government, the Board of Regents, and of this institution, and the clients that attend classes. In this context, the bylaws of the Board of Regents' contractual promises are ultimately the responsibility of the Board of Regents, and it is they that will be held liable for failing to uphold their fiduciary responsibilities and enforce the bylaws. However, I thank you for your response and appreciate your candor. I did also add in another paragraph that I said, apologies, it appears that I failed to clearly and properly clarify one point in response to your email. As mentioned by you, a receipt of my complaint to Regent O'Connor was conducted. I misquoted that, it's a typo. This is impossible as I filed no complaint. Based on context, it is likely that you are referring to my report titled such, in which case you will have misconstrued it as a complaint. This point must be clarified because a complaint is very different from a report. I sincerely hope this concludes the possible misunderstanding as far as clarification of terms is concerned. Furthermore, be advised, because it has been demonstrated that inaction will be taken, and the bylaws will not be enforced, which could constitute, quote, wanton neglect of duty, as stipulated in the bylaws, I will be forwarding this report on to other applicable parties. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best. Now I get a response from the regent herself, at least allegedly, because, again, anyone can send an email. She stated, thank you for sharing your report on possible misconduct at UNK dated November 5th, 2022. After receiving your communication, I asked UNK Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, blah, 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 and UNK Chief Compliance Officer. Thank you, Elizabeth. I actually asked them for a review. In our next example of the University, Grand Canyon University, which I attended previously, we'll start out with an example of arbitrary grading and what that looks like as part of the tactics of the torch bearers to burn the pyre of knowledge. Quote, a particular professor at this institution stated, "Hi, Stephen. Thank you for your submission of the academic path reflection. You earned 35 of 65 points. You did not provide enough detail to answer the question. Your answers are very general and are not specific and individualized enough to answer the questions outlined in the syllabus. Please be more specific and straightforward in future reflections to earn full points." Of course, that comment, ironically, is also non-individualized, extremely vague, and does not detail anything, and is also very general. I'm sure the expert on generalizations would appreciate it. And, of course, from this university, I was indeed expelled, in which I received an official email from their Office of Academic Compliance Code of Conduct, which stated, "Attached, you will find the committee's decision letter. Should you have any questions, please call academic compliance," blah, blah, blah. So, that lets me know that a committee reviewed it. How nice. In the letter that they sent me that was attached, they stated, "Dear Stephen, Grand Canyon University holds academic integrity and professionalism close to the heart of its mission. For these two reasons, we believe it is important for students and faculty alike to be able to report incidents where these two values are violated. You are hereby notified of your expulsion from Grand Canyon University based on the recommendation from the Code of Conduct Committee in consultation with the College of Humanities and Social Sciences and the Assistant Vice President of the Academic Compliance and Regulation, effective 02/17/2022. Your expulsion from the university means you cannot register for any additional courses for 2 academic years. You may not reapply until after this time period. In addition, your access to all GCU systems has been terminated and any financial aid funds for future semesters denied." How nice. Of course, this is their very different response to the VA complaint. Unfortunately, it was a complaint because that's how their system works, which I filed with the Department of Veterans Affairs. They responded, "Regarding complaint case number blah blah blah, Grand Canyon University management has been unable to make voice contact with Mr. Coleman Roush." Now there we go with a liability diversion. Reviewing the complaint, Mr. Coleman Roush expressed his frustrations that GCU was taking too long to matriculate his transfer credits. Specifically, credits from the Defense Language Institute DLI where he attended prior. Without evaluation of these credits, GCU would be unable to fully matriculate Mr. Coleman Roush's records. Mr. Coleman Roush has asked that his files get processed in a timely manner, and that alone would resolve this particular situation. Upon looking into the details of this complaint, GCU was able to determine that the transcripts from DLI were received at GCU on 3 December 2021 and processed for matriculation immediately thereafter. Mr. Coleman Roush started his academic program on 29 November 2021 and his federal aid posted to his account on 23 December 2021, which is well within the 30 to 45 day processing period as promised to students by GCU. At this time, we have not been able to reach Mr. Coleman Roush to discuss his complaint and ensure that everything has been taken care of. Attempts to contact Mr. Coleman Roush were made by both phone and email several times. Mr. Coleman Roush did respond via email letting us know that he was unable to speak with us and would prefer to work through the VA resolution. GCU would welcome contact with Mr. Coleman Roush and he is welcome to reach out, blah, blah, blah. Now, this entire response that they give to the VA, first of all, it is only addressing one of the concerns and then extrapolating that as to say that it was all of the concern was just this one thing. But this is also shifting liability away from them back onto me, naturally. And it is fraught with lying. But one of the important parts is that their lies are very difficult to prove, which is sort of the point. If you lie about things that are difficult to prove, well then, but if it does apply with other things that they're doing in this situation, you can state that they're lying without necessarily concrete evidence that they're lying, but because they're doing all these other things as well. That's called corroborating. You're corroborating in that instance. And of course, this is what the VA's response was, or the Department of Veterans Affairs, that said, the feedback you submitted through the Department of Veterans Affairs, blah, 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 was forwarded to the school for a response on your behalf. Below / attached is the response VA received addressing the feedback. Your feedback has been closed as resolved. If you disagree with the response from the school, you should contact the school directly. Please be advised that most often the VA is limited in its ability to compel any action by an education institution. However, all feedback is forwarded to the Federal Trade Commission's Consumer Sentinel Network, where federal, state, and law enforcement agencies will have access to the feedback information as well. Well, that's nice. So they give money to these institutions, but they cannot compel any action. Wow. In our next example, we will start out with a rather humorous anecdote. An alleged English professor or teacher posted an assignment in which she directed students to essentially bring awareness to disability. So it seems like an odd assignment for an English class, doesn't it? Anyway, as a sort of a partially serious joke, I stated that we could have a day where people put on blind goggles or glasses or whatnot and pretended to be blind for a day. Kind of like how Dare does their drunk goggles. Now, this teacher responded by stating, how would a blind person feel if they saw that? Now, this English teacher provided an odd clarification in response to a poor grade that she awarded to an assignment. She stated, the purpose of this assignment was to start making claims about how disability is represented in popular culture, and then back up your claims, your own claims, with secondary sources. Now that's odd for an English assignment. Overall, you demonstrated an understanding of your secondary, that's a typo, sources, and you incorporated them into your writing with both paraphrasing and quotation, or quoting. So this is good and will be helpful for the ARP. However, you will want to use the Purdue OWL website for proper in-text citation format. Oftentimes, ran together, you really just need the author name and page number in parentheses at the end of the sentence. It seemed that your overall claim, now this is not divided into paragraphs, but this is the part that's very important. So she states, quote, it seemed that your overall claim was that the media misrepresents those in the military, especially in connection with violence. This gets away from the theme of the course. Representations of disability in popular culture, which should be the main focus of your papers. Toward the end of the SSI, you did write about PTSD, but it seems that this could be a much larger part of the paper. For the ARP, you will want to focus on creating a clear thesis that reflects the course theme and makes clear claims. Well, I thought the course theme was English. Stupid me. Throughout the rest of the paper, your claims should be the focus, and then you use secondary sources to back up your ideas with clear transition between claims. Well, there she states exactly what her purpose is, which is not necessarily to talk about disability, but to only talk about a narrative around disability. She is a propaganda enforcer and nothing more. At least as far as disability is concerned, because she definitely does not teach English. Now, I responded by stating, thank you very much for your feedback. It was much appreciated. That's called being polite. I don't understand exactly what is the issue with my in-text citations, but I will attempt to address this issue. However, I do not agree with your assertion that my work falls outside the purview of this class. Notwithstanding my disagreement in regard to disability being covered in the syllabus of this English course, I believe that this paper was completely within the boundaries of the subject of disability in popular culture. First, the media is part of our popular culture. Furthermore, when discussing veteran disability, there's a broad range of ideas that cover this. There are many types of disabilities in the veteran community, and the media portrays veterans as all being disabled. Well, it's a typo, but I said disables. I meant to say disabled, which is simply not true. I highlighted PTSD simply as an example, as it is the most pointed to excuse for negative bias. But disability in the veteran community is a complicated subject that spans mental as well as physical aspects. Honestly, I truly care about solely about passing college and obtaining my diploma, but I feel as though my grade misrepresents the work that I put into this project. Well, naturally, because the point of that project was propaganda. Now she responded, well, with further context. Hi, Stephen. I just posted my comments about your ARP draft. I left detailed comments, and I hope that combined with the SSI feedback, you find them useful in revising for the final ARP. In your last email, you wrote, the main theme of the paper is based around the broken window theory and how media coverage further increases disability within the military and veteran community. There wasn't any mention of the broken window theory in your paper. Well, it's not true, which might be useful and interesting to include. In addition, I didn't quite see clear claims or examples from the secondary sources about how media coverage increases disability within the military and veteran community, which is a really interesting claim. Instead, the paper focused more on media coverage of military and veterans, with not as much explanation as to how exactly this increases disability. And this comment, of course, perfectly explains what her purpose really is behind that. And then, of course, she signed it with a rather interesting signature. And she also gave clarification on the grade that she gave for the other things, or the other assignments. She stated, hi, Stephen. Thank you for following up in an email. For some reason, Carmen, that's the name of their software, does not notify me when a student posts a comment in response to mine, so it's a good thing you reached out. The OWL, Purdue, OWL, is a great resource for helping with in-text citations, but let me know if you have any questions about this. I can absolutely tell that you put a lot of work into this assignment. However, the grade I originally assigned will remain. The syllabus clearly states that the theme of this class is disability. Well, the name of this class states that it's English, and I mentioned several times throughout the course that writing assignments will be focused on disability. It is common that most 1110 classes have themes that instructors choose. The first day of class, I also said that if you had an issue with a theme, you should talk to me. Consider switching to another section, or considering taking the course in a future semester. Yes, you're right that media is a part of popular culture. However, the SSI you submitted focused primarily on media bias and had minimal connection to disability claims or secondary research about disability. That's just a lie. The SSI assignment sheet and rubric explain that the purpose of the assignment was to practice creating claims with a clear thesis statement and use secondary research to clearly back up your claims. Blah, blah, blah. The paper did not always maintain your own critical voice and did not incorporate secondary sources in the clearest way. Please refer back to my in-text and overall comment for more explanation of this. I understand the stress of your GPA being connected to benefits, but you still have an A- in the class. The ARP is worth 250 points, which will have more weight than the 100-point SSI. Part of the purpose of the SSI is also to use my feedback to help you write your ARP. Since you have a chance to submit a draft for the ARP and receive more feedback from me before turning in the final, there should still be time to make sure that the final ARP follows the assignment directions. And there in that last sentence, you get a perfect example of coercion. That is basically using the threat of a bad grade in a more weighted assignment in an attempt to control a student's outcome, as according to the cardinal principles of secondary education. Now, in an example with a different professor, alleged, a professor of upper level Portuguese literature stated, "Dear Stephen, I am writing to ask if there is anything I can do to help you achieve some degree of normalcy in this new teaching environment we are forced to experience." Now, for context of this particular comment, this is when everything closed down because of the so-called COVID pandemic. And this is just a saving face style of email. Anyway, he said, "I am worried about the fact that not only you have missed the last 2 classes without any forewarning, but also that you have not turned in the first draft of your midterm short paper. Additionally, I am waiting for your response regarding the schedule change the class has determined to implement for the remaining of the semester. Remainder. This thing is a typo. In navigating these demands, my priorities would be 1, maintain a channel of communication open with me so that I am aware of what is going on with you and can determine what may be the best course of action to help you reach the end of the semester with a positive outcome. Let me know if the proposed schedule change works for you ASAP." That stands for as soon as possible, by the way. And in 3, turn in your essay draft as soon as possible. I don't know why I didn't say ASAP. And join the class tomorrow and for the remaining of the semester. Well, that's twice that he used that word in that way, so perhaps that's not a typo. It's just a lack of grammatical knowledge. I am willing to be as flexible, that's clearly a lie, without compromising the quality of the instruction that I am obliged to impart. But I need to know what is impeding your progress and to make sure that your performance in my course will not subside further. On the other hand, please let me know if there is a personal/family problem that is serious enough that a professional help may be necessary, and I'll be happy to try to identify and recommend the proper channels for you to obtain help. What we are experiencing right now is very disconcerting and there is much uncertainty about everything. However, I believe that we will be better off if we can pull through to the end of the semester. Indeed, we're almost there. And then in a next email sent by said professor, he stated, "Dear Stephen, I hope this message finds you well. At this point, I have no choice but to consider that you will not complete the necessary requirements for passing the stated class this semester. You have not attended any classes since we migrated to the online delivery mode, and you missed a few classes before that as well. And I have not gotten any update from you or any request for help with class requirements. I am forced to surmise that he's forced, that you decided not to complete the course, and if I don't hear from you, I will assign a grade of F at the end of this semester." Wow, that definitely sounds coercive. The one option you have left to avoid this scenario is to request the P/NP option. The deadline for this request to be considered is tomorrow, with a exclamation point and also included in parentheses. Could have just put a comma. And to request from me a grade of incomplete so that you can do some of the work necessary for you to pass the course at a more convenient date. Well, isn't that nice? Now, in response, after his super coercive language that he had, he said, "Dear Stephen, first things first." And that's got a colon. That's, yeah, whatever. "My sincere condolences to you and your family for the loss of your grandmother. Secondly, and as I told you in my previous email, you need to apply for PA/NP in order to get a passing grade for this course. The deadline for applying for this grade has passed, but you should try to convince registrars of your extenuating circumstances I'm perfectly willing to grant you an incomplete to allow you to complete the midterm short paper and the final paper, which will give you the necessary credit for passing the course. You will not have to worry about homework assignments, but I hope you understand that it is impossible for me to consider a grade higher than a passing one, considering all the classes you missed. I just can't see how you would be able to jump all the hoops without any help. The good thing about getting a PA grade is that it will not affect your overall GPA. It will not raise it, but it won't lower it either. If you haven't yet done so, you should have a conversation with registrars tomorrow. I don't know why that's a possessive. And see what your options are. What a joke. Indeed. And then it's signed with all of his titles. Purely arbitrary, of course. Now, onto yet another professor at this institution, which, mind you, was the first institution I attended, so I learned a lot better from this circumstance. I stated, "Hello, my name is Stephen Coleman-Roush, and I'm a service-connected student," that's using their language, "in your 11:10 to 12:30 class, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. First, I would like to say that I appreciate your punctuality and organization. However, I would like to make known some of my concerns with this class. Essentially, I find the class to be difficult to engage with. Furthermore, I have some fundamental disagreements with the course material, teaching style, and advice given through the curriculum. I have worked in the linguistics field in the U.S. Marine Corps, and I have some experience in this area. I previously studied at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. I simply state this to provide a basis of understanding for my perspective. I am used to an entirely different teaching format and material. In conjunction, I am attending the university on my GI benefits and have a monetary stake in the education at OSU. I wish to reach some form of peaceful resolution to resolve these concerns. Furthermore, I hope this email does not cause offense," again, using their language, "as that was not my intention. Honestly, I was nervous in reaching out, as I felt this may not be received well." What a surprise. "I do not bear any ill will, but I do not feel as though this grade represents my true abilities. I am simply having trouble engaging with the course content and teaching method. Please let me know of any thoughts you might have to facilitate a better experience with this class." Now, his response is about as you would expect. He said, Hi Stephen. Thanks for your message. I'm sorry to hear about your difficulties with the class. We should probably meet in person and talk about them. I could meet tomorrow before or after class or during the office hours on Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 2:30. Let me know what works best for you. Now, I responded by letting him know that at the time I had car troubles and couldn't make it, and that was the last I heard from him. Of course, everything did shut down, so. Now, if you think there would be help from legislatures, I did in fact reach out to a representative. And the response I got back was from an aide, no surprise. Said, "Dear Mr. Coleman-Roush, yes, thank you for contacting us. We will do our best to see how we can help." Essentially, there is a process in place with the Ohio Department of Higher Education that could be of help. I'm going to send your information to our liaison there, and he should be in touch with me or you directly soon. If you don't hear anything from either one of us in the next day or so, please reach back out, and I will see what the delay is. I could be reached at blah 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 or by blah blah blah. Thanks, and I hope we can be of assistance soon. And of course, that was the end of that. And it's about as you expect. The proverbial runaround. Now, as an example of the proverbial runaround, after reporting these things up through the various mechanisms at said institution, I got the response back from the civil rights intake coordinator. She stated, Hello, Stephen. Great, thanks for following up. I will escalate your concern to our investigations team. Once an investigator is assigned, they will send outreach to you, likely by email. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns.
Well, isn't that nice? It's being escalated. And this, of course, is in response to a previous thing where she responded stating, "Hi, Stephen. Thank you for reporting your concern to our office. Office of Institutional Equity is here to help." In what way, I wonder? And I want to make sure you know your support, resources, and investigation options. We can answer questions and help you make connections. Well, I don't think the runaround could have been explained better than in that very short paragraph of like 3 sentences. And she stated that a civil rights investigator in the Office of Institutional Equity is available to meet you to better understand your concerns and help you learn more about the investigations process. If you would like to schedule a meeting, please reply to this email or call blah, blah, blah. How official. And then some other inconsequential explanations and signature. All very official. However, in a sort of less official format, I gained the response of, "Hello, Stephen. I apologize. Something has come up and I will need to schedule a 2:30 phone call tomorrow. I may be able to call you at 2 p.m. to quickly discuss, but it may also be better for me to blah, blah, blah. Also, what number is good to reach you?" Signed very unprofessionally. But this is in response to a comment that she made, that this other person made earlier to call around 2:30 previous day. And then also in another email, she said, "Thank you, I will give you a call at 4:30 today. What phone number should I use?" So that's twice that she asked for a phone number. This is all a perfect example of the runaround, which is basically just mechanisms to waste your time and nothing more. And of course, most people who have ever dealt with any corporation know exactly how this works, and it's usually ran by operative secretaries, which are all indemnified of liability, but then hung out to dry by their leadership, who direct them to do these types of things. And of course, nothing ever gets solved. No one gets held accountable because it is all the way at the so-called top, shall we say. And this example is from a different individual also engaging in this runaround. She stated, "Hi, Stephen. Thanks so much for reaching out. In order to determine how to best address your concern, it would be helpful to get a little more information about the possible fraudulent activity. Would you be available to discuss it with me over the phone this week? If so, please let me know when might be a good time to chat." Very strange, these people are really afraid of emails and very much prefer to talk over the phone. I mean, you can record conversations, but they also like to talk in person. I guess they just are very afraid of the paper trail. And this is a response to a previous email where she stated, "Hi, Stephen. Just wanted to let you know that I've reached out to leadership in the Department of Mathematics to get some further information. I will let you know whenever I get their response." Now, this is in context of an entirely different situation that is in reference to the mathematics department. And in the first previous comment, she stated, "Hi, Stephen. Please see the attached response from the chair of the Department of Mathematics. We do not have any indication of financial impropriety with regard to the selection of the ALEX platform for Math 1075. However, if you have any more specific questions or concerns about the textbook selection and the ALEX platform, the math department will likely be blah, blah, blah." So there you go. Did not discover any financial impropriety. And then it was, not really signed, but. And this is in response to this is not detailed as a complaint, so I guess you might say it's a report, but it's a case number, at least for their official investigation process. Oh, nope, there it is, complaint. And I stated, "While attending OSU, I enrolled in a mandatory mathematics course.
Upon enrolling in the class Mathematics 1075, I was required to pay a subscription fee for extra software named Alex. This software was required for completing homework and tests. Imagine that. That's like going to a school and paying them, and then also having to pay for Netflix, in which Netflix runs all your homework and tests and stuff. Anyway, these extra fees were not disclosed prior to my enrollment in the class. Having already paid for this class, I refused to pay this extra fee and have been unable to complete coursework. I reached out to the university's fraudulent activity office, and they informed me that they could find no fraudulent activity, citing that no staff received financial gain from this. This situation strikes me as unethical and fraudulent, regardless of staff involvement. Well, go figure, because that's what it is. But, of course, filing this with the Department of Veterans Affairs is about as one would expect, and very non-committal responses were given, and the proverbial runaround was received. As with the previous example, the Department of Veterans Affairs closed the issue as resolved, and also said that they have limited ability to compel action. What a surprise. Now, from the previous example of the investigator, she stated that she wanted to set up a brief update, or wanted to provide a brief update about the report that I submitted, and also asked when is a good time to talk, and also what is a good phone number.